My name is Margaret Collins. I'm 56, a widow, and I run a small laundromat. I thought I knew my son-in-law. Charming, perfect, loving, until the day I checked his coat pocket and found an envelope that would destroy everything. What I discovered wasn't just a betrayal, it was something far more dangerous. Before I tell you what happened next, please hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Trust me, you won't want to miss what comes next. If you'd told me 7 years ago that a laundromat would save my life, I would have laughed until I cried. But here I am, 56 years old, standing behind the counter of Crystal Clean, with the scent of lavender detergent clinging to my clothes, and something close to peace in my chest. The morning light filters through the front windows, casting long shadows across the rows of washing machines. I've always loved this time of day, before the rush, before the chaos, when it's just me and the quiet hum of the dryers. This place has become more than a business. It's my sanctuary, my second chance, the thing that kept me breathing after David died. 7 years. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, other times like a lifetime ago. Our little town in inland California isn't the kind of place where much happens. Everyone knows everyone, and trust is the currency we trade in. When you run a laundromat in a town like this, you become the keeper of secrets, the grass stain that won't come out of little Jimmy's baseball uniform, the wine spill on Mrs. Henderson's anniversary dress, the grease marks on Mayor Thompson's best suit. I've washed it all, and I've kept every confidence. That's why people trust me. That's why my business thrives. The bell above the door chimes, a sound I've grown to love, and I glance up from the invoice I'm reviewing. My heart does that little leap it always does when I see her. "Morning, Mom," Susan says, her smile bright despite the early hour. My eldest daughter, 30 years old, with her father's eyes and my stubborn chin. She's carrying 2 large bags of laundry, struggling slightly with their weight. "Susan, honey, let me help you." I rush around the counter, taking one of the bags from her arms. "Our machine finally gave up the ghost last night," she explains, setting her bag down with a grateful sigh. "Gregory tried to fix it, but you know how he is. More comfortable with blueprints than appliances." I smile at that. Gregory Reed, my son-in-law for 5 years now, is an engineer with a mind like a steel trap and hands that can calculate stress loads but fumble with a wrench. He's educated, charming, thoughtful in ways that still surprise me. When Susan first brought him home, I'd been skeptical. What mother isn't? But he'd won me over completely. He brings me flowers on Mother's Day. He helps with my taxes. He calls me his second mom. And the affection in his voice feels genuine, real. "I told him I'd handle it," Susan continues, pulling items from the bags. "Oh, Mom, be careful with this one." She lifts a gray wool coat, elegant and clearly expensive. It's his favorite. He has that presentation next week. I take the coat carefully, feeling its quality between my fingers. Gregory always dresses well, sharp, professional, every detail considered. "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll treat it like it's made of gold." Susan laughs, and the sound fills the laundromat with warmth. "You're the best. I don't know what we'd do without you." "You'd figure it out," I say, but my heart swells. This is what I live for now. These moments, this connection, knowing my daughters need me. We chat for a few more minutes. Small talk about the grandkids, about Gregory's upcoming project, about the PTA meeting Susan has to attend. Normal, everyday conversation. The kind that makes life feel solid, predictable, safe. When she leaves, waving goodbye through the window, I'm alone again with the bags of laundry. I begin sorting through them mechanically, my hands moving with practiced efficiency. Shirts, pants, socks, delicates. Each item gets categorized, checked for stains, prepared for washing. I save the gray coat for last, hanging it carefully on the rack by the window where it can air out before I treat it. The morning sun catches the fabric, making it look almost silver. Such a beautiful coat, such an ordinary morning. If only I'd known that this coat, these pockets, this simple act of checking would change everything. October had always been my favorite month. The way the fog rolled in from the coast, settling over our town like a whispered secret. The smell of wood smoke and dried leaves, the crispness in the air that made everything feel somehow more alive. That Tuesday morning, fog pressed against the windows of Crystal Clean. turning the world outside soft and gray. I worked methodically, loading Gregory's shirts into the industrial washer, adding detergent with the precision of someone who'd done this 10,000 times. The coat hung by the window where I'd left it, elegant and patient. I ran my hand over the wool, checking for any spots or stains. Nothing. Gregory took care of his things. The fabric was pristine. Smooth, expensive. I moved to hang it on the drying rack when I felt it, a weight in the inner pocket that made the coat hang unevenly, probably his wallet. Men were always forgetting things in pockets. I'd learned early in this business to check everything. I'd found keys, receipts, loose change, shopping lists, even a diamond earring once. People trusted me to look, to protect their belongings, to return what was theirs. I slipped my hand into the inner pocket. My fingers touched paper, thick, stiff paper, an envelope. I pulled it out slowly, brown manila, slightly worn at the edges, unsealed, no name on the outside, no address, just an envelope that felt heavy with more than just paper. Something in my chest tightened. Some instinct, some sixth sense that mothers develop was whispering, "Don't look, put it back. You don't want to know." But I'd already opened it. 3 photographs slipped into my palm, glossy and recent, and there he was. Gregory, my charming son-in-law, my daughter's husband, the man who called me his second mother. With another woman, the first photo showed them at a restaurant, sitting close, her hand on his arm. She was young, maybe 25, blonde hair falling in waves past her shoulders, a gentle smile on her face. Pretty in that effortless way that some women are. The second photo captured them walking through a park, fingers intertwined, his head tilted toward hers, like he was sharing something intimate. The third photo, God! The third photo showed them embracing, his arms wrapped around her waist, her face buried in his neck. Not the embrace of friends, not the embrace of colleagues, the embrace of lovers. My hands started shaking. The photographs trembled between my fingers like living things trying to escape. Tucked behind the photos was a small card, cream-colored, elegant, handwritten in blue ink, for Emily with love. Gee, Emily. He'd even given her a pet name. Or maybe that was her real name. Did it matter? I wanted to look away. I wanted to unsee what I'd just seen. But my eyes, traitorous things, kept searching the envelope. There was something else inside. A slip of paper, folded once, a hotel receipt, the Grand View Inn, San Luis Obispo. 3 hours from here, 2 weeks ago, room for 12, 2 nights, 2 weeks ago. Susan had told me Gregory was at an engineering conference in Sacramento. She'd complained, laughing, about being abandoned for the weekend with the kids. He'd lied to her blatantly, completely. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the counter, the envelope still clutched in my other hand, my breath coming short and sharp. The fog outside seemed to press closer, suffocating. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. But the photographs didn't lie. The receipt didn't lie. The handwriting, Gregory's precise, careful script, didn't lie. My son-in-law was having an affair. My Susan, my beautiful, trusting, devoted Susan, who'd given this man everything, was being betrayed, and I was the only one who knew. I stood there in my quiet laundromat, surrounded by the mundane rhythm of washing machines and the lingering scent of detergent, holding evidence of a betrayal so complete it felt like I'd been struck. What was I supposed to do? My first instinct, my mother's instinct, screamed at me to call Susan immediately, to tell her everything, to protect her from this man who'd fooled us all. But another voice, quieter but insistent, whispered, "Think, be careful. You don't know the whole story. This will destroy her. This will destroy everything." My hands were still shaking as I carefully slid the photographs back into the envelope, folded it closed, and, God help me, placed it back into the coat pocket where I'd found it. I hung the coat on the rack with the others, smooth and innocent, hiding its poison, and I stood there, alone in the fog-wrapped morning, wondering if silence could be the same thing as protection, or if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life. Sleep became a stranger to me. Every night, I'd lie in the darkness of my bedroom, the same room I'd shared with David, the same bed where he'd died 7 years ago, and the photographs would replay behind my closed eyelids. Gregory's smile, the blonde woman's hand on his arm, that embrace that spoke of intimacy I had no right to witness, and Susan, always Susan, her face when she dropped off the laundry, so trusting, so content in her marriage. How do you tell your daughter that the foundation of her life is built on lies? The answer, I discovered, was that you don't. Not immediately, not without being sure, not without thinking through every possible consequence. So I carried the secret like a stone in my chest, heavy and sharp-edged. 3 days passed, then 4. Each morning, I opened Crystal Clean and went through the motions, washing, drying, folding, smiling at customers, while my mind circled endlessly around the same impossible question. What do I do? If I told Susan, her world would shatter, her marriage, her family, the life she'd carefully built over 5 years. All of it would crumble. The kids would suffer. Emily and Jake, my grandchildren, 8 and 6 years old, who adored their father. How do you explain betrayal to children that young? But if I stayed silent, wasn't I betraying Susan myself? Wasn't I choosing to let her live a lie? The weight of it crushed me. On Thursday afternoon, Gregory came to pick up the laundry. I heard the bell chime and looked up from the register to see him walking in. All easy confidence and designer clothes, he wore a smile that had once charmed me completely. "Afternoon, Mom Margaret," he said, using that nickname that now felt like acid on my ears. "Susan said the laundry should be ready." "Yes," I managed, my voice steadier than I felt. "I'll get it for you." I moved to the back, gathering the neatly folded clothes, the pressed shirts on hangers, and finally, my hands trembling slightly, the gray wool coat. When I returned, Gregory was leaning against the counter scrolling through his phone. He looked up when I approached, and for a moment I saw him clearly, handsome, polished, a man who knew how to present exactly what people wanted to see. "You're a lifesaver," he said, taking the bags. His hand brushed mine, and I had to fight the urge to flinch. "Susan's been going crazy without the machine. I keep telling her we should just buy a new one. But you know how she is. Wants to research for 6 months before making a decision." He laughed, a casual, affectionate laugh, the laugh of a devoted husband. I wanted to scream. "Are you all right?" Gregory asked, his smile fading into concern. "You look pale." "I'm fine," I said quickly, too quickly, just tired. He studied me for a moment longer than comfortable, his eyes sharp and assessing. This was the engineer. I realized, the man who solved problems, who noticed when things didn't add up. "You sure you're not coming down with something?" "No, really, I'm okay." But I wasn't okay, and some part of him knew it. He paid for the service, making small talk about his upcoming project, about the kids' soccer games, about mundane things that felt surreal given what I knew. When he finally left, carrying his bags, carrying that coat and its poison, I had to sit down, my legs suddenly weak. That night Susan called. "Mom, thank you so much for handling the laundry. Gregory said you seemed a little off. Are you feeling all right?" The concern in her voice nearly broke me. "I'm fine, sweetheart, just a long day. You work too hard. Why don't you come over this weekend? The kids miss you, and I'm making that pot roast you love." Sunday dinner at their house, with Gregory playing the perfect husband and father while I sat across from him, knowing what he'd done, what he was hiding. "That sounds lovely," I heard myself say. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen staring at my reflection in the dark window. The woman looking back at me seemed older than 56, hollowed out by secrets. I thought about David. What would he have done? He'd always been the decisive one, the one who saw things clearly and acted without hesitation. But David was gone, and I was alone with this terrible knowledge. Maybe I was protecting Susan by staying silent. Maybe I was giving myself time to figure out the right way to tell her. Or maybe, and this thought scared me most, I was just a coward. That night, I dreamed of the photographs again. But this time, when I looked closer, they weren't pictures of Gregory and Emily at all. They were pictures of me, standing in the laundromat, holding the envelope, and someone was watching me through the fog-covered windows. Someone who knew exactly what I'd found. A week after finding the envelope, I learned what true fear felt like. I was closing up Crystal Clean, 6:30 on a Wednesday evening, the sun already setting behind the hills, casting the town in amber light that would soon turn to darkness. I just locked the cash register and was gathering my purse when my phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I almost didn't open it. Unknown numbers were usually spam, automated messages about car warranties or prescription drugs, but something made me tap the screen. The message was short, 7 words that turned my blood to ice. If you tell the truth, everyone pays. The phone slipped through my fingers, clattering onto the counter. No, this couldn't be happening. I stared at the screen, my heart hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Who sent this? How did they know? I'd told no one about the photographs. No one. With shaking hands, I picked up the phone and read the message again, searching for some clue, some indication of who might be behind it. But there was nothing. Just those 7 words and an anonymous number. I looked up at the windows, suddenly feeling exposed. The street outside was quiet, the usual evening calm of our small town. A few cars passed. Mrs. Henderson walked by with her dog. Everything normal, except for the black sedan parked across the street. I'd never seen it before, in a town this size. You knew every car, every driver. This one was wrong. Too sleek, too dark. Windows tinted so heavily I couldn't see inside. As I watched, the headlights flickered on, then immediately off again, like someone had noticed me noticing them. My breath caught. I stepped away from the window, pressing myself against the wall. My phone still clutched in my hand. Was someone in that car watching me? Had they seen me find the envelope? Were they watching me right now? After several minutes, though it felt like hours, I heard an engine start. Through the window, I saw the black sedan pull away from the curb and disappear down Main Street, moving slowly, deliberately. I locked up Crystal Clean faster than I ever had, my hands fumbling with the keys, constantly looking over my shoulder. The drive home, usually a peaceful 10 minutes, felt like navigating through a nightmare. Every car behind me seemed suspicious. Every shadow held a potential threat. Over the next few days, things got worse. Mr. Patterson came into the laundromat on Thursday morning, his face flushed with anger. "Margaret, what the hell happened to my shirts?" I blinked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" "I picked them up yesterday. They're not mine, different size, different style, completely wrong." "That's impossible," I said. But even as I spoke, a cold dread settled in my stomach. "I personally checked your order before you picked it up." "Well, someone screwed up and I need those shirts for a business trip tomorrow." I apologized profusely, offered to remake the order free of charge, but Mr. Patterson left unsatisfied. He'd been a loyal customer for 5 years. He'd never complained before. That afternoon, Mrs. Chin called. "Margaret, dear, I hate to bother you, but there's a problem with the check I gave you last week." "A problem?" "My bank says it was deposited twice. Once by you and once by, well, they're not sure, but they're claiming fraud." "That's impossible. I deposited it once, like I always do, but the bank records didn't agree with me somehow. Somewhere, there was a duplicate deposit that I hadn't made. Friday morning, my own bank called. "Miss Collins, this is Brian from First National. We need to speak with you about some unusual activity on your business account." "What kind of activity?" "Several transactions we need to verify, and we're temporarily freezing your account pending investigation." "Freezing my... You can't do that. I have bills to pay, payroll." "It's just temporary, ma'am. Standard procedure when we detect potentially fraudulent activity." I hung up, feeling like the walls were closing in. Someone was sabotaging me. Someone was systematically destroying my business, my reputation, the life I'd built from nothing. And I knew, with a certainty that made me sick, exactly who was behind it. Gregory, Sunday dinner at Susan's house was a special kind of torture. I sat at their dining room table, the one I'd helped them pick out when they bought the house, watching Gregory carve the roast with steady hands. He smiled at Susan, joked with the kids, asked me about my week with what seemed like genuine concern. "How's business, Mom Margaret?" he asked, passing me the mashed potatoes. I met his eyes across the table. They were warm, friendly, giving nothing away. "It's been challenging," I said carefully. "Oh." He tilted his head, interested. "Anything I can help with?" Susan jumped in before I could answer. "Mom's had some weird stuff happening at the laundromat. Mixed up orders, bank problems, right, Mom?" "Just some confusion," I said, my throat tight. "Nothing to worry about." Gregory's expression didn't change. but I saw something flicker in his eyes. Recognition. Warning. "Well," he said softly, "I hope it all gets sorted out soon. It would be terrible if something happened to damage the business you've worked so hard to build." The message was clear, and I finally understood. I wasn't just keeping a secret. I was in danger. My world began to collapse on a Monday morning. I arrived at Crystal Clean to find Mrs. Yamamoto waiting outside, her arms crossed, her usual warm smile replaced with cold disappointment. "Margaret, we need to talk, of course. What's wrong?" "I picked up my husband's suits on Friday. You ruined them. Bleach stains all over the jackets. $3,000 suits, Margaret. Destroyed." The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. "That's impossible. I never use bleach on dry clean items. Never." "Well, someone did, and they were in your care." She left without another word. And I knew I'd lost her as a customer. More than that, I'd lost her trust. In a small town, trust is everything. By noon, 2 more customers had complained. A wedding dress with a mysterious tear. A set of linens returned to the wrong family, causing embarrassment and anger. None of it was my fault, but I couldn't prove it. At 2 o'clock, my bank called again. The freeze on my account was being extended. They'd found irregularities that required further investigation. When I pressed for details, they gave me corporate speak and apologies. I couldn't access my money, couldn't pay my suppliers, couldn't make payroll for my 2 part-time employees. By Thursday, I was standing behind my counter, staring at the washing machines, feeling like a prisoner in my own business, when Officer Martinez walked through the door. I'd known Danny Martinez since he was 10 years old. I'd washed his Little League uniforms, his prom tux, his police academy dress blues. He'd always called me Miss Margaret with respect and affection. But today, his face was professional, distant. "Margaret Collins," he said formally, as if he didn't know exactly who I was. "Danny, what's going on?" "Ma'am, we've received a formal complaint regarding fraudulent business practices at this establishment." He held up a folded paper. "This is a warrant allowing us to inspect your financial records and business documentation." The room spun. "Fraudulent. Danny, you know me. You know I would never—" "It's not personal, Miss Margaret. We have to follow up on all complaints." His voice softened slightly. "I'm sorry. I really am." 2 more officers came in behind him. They were polite but thorough, going through my files, my computer, my deposit records. Customers who came in during the inspection took one look at the police presence and left without a word. I could practically see my reputation crumbling in real time when they finally left. Taking copies of documents I barely understood, Officer Martinez lingered at the door. "Miss Margaret, I don't know what's going on here, but be careful. Okay, something about this doesn't feel right." After they left, I sat in the empty laundromat, surrounded by the machines that had been my salvation, and felt utterly alone. That night I couldn't eat, couldn't think. The walls of my small house seemed to press in on me, suffocating. My phone rang. "Susan." I almost didn't answer. "Mom, I just heard about what happened at the laundromat." "The police, Mom, what's going on?" Of course she'd heard. In a town this size, everyone knew everything within hours. "It's a misunderstanding," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just some complaints that got escalated. It'll be fine." "Are you sure? Gregory said we should maybe get you a lawyer. He knows someone who—" "No." The word came out sharper than I intended. "I mean, no, honey. I don't need a lawyer. I haven't done anything wrong." There was a pause. "Mom, you sound scared." I was terrified, but not for the reasons she thought. "I'm just tired. It's been a difficult week. Come stay with us for a few days. You shouldn't be alone right now." Stay with them? In that house, under that roof, with Gregory watching me with those knowing eyes, probably planning his next move to destroy me. "I'll be fine, sweetheart, I promise." After we hung up, I stood at my kitchen window, looking out at the quiet street, and there it was again, the black sedan, parked 3 houses down, its engine idling, watching, waiting. I grabbed my keys and my purse. I couldn't do this alone anymore. I couldn't protect Susan while I was being systematically destroyed, and I definitely couldn't figure out what Gregory really was, or what he was really hiding. Without help, there was only one person I could trust, one person who might actually believe me and have the skills to do something about it. Tom Harris lived 20 minutes away, in a modest house on the edge of town. I'd avoided calling ahead, afraid somehow that my phone might be monitored, that Gregory might intercept the call. I was becoming paranoid, but then again, paranoia implies irrational fear, and there was nothing irrational about what was happening to me. Tom answered the door in jeans and a flannel shirt, his gray hair tousled, reading glasses perched on his head. His face creased into a smile that faded immediately when he saw my expression. "Margaret, what's wrong?" I'd held it together for days. Stayed strong, stayed silent, carried the weight of it all alone. But standing there on Tom Harris's doorstep, looking into the kind eyes of my late husband's best friend, I finally broke. "Tom," I whispered, my voice cracking, "I need your help, please. I think I'm in terrible danger." Tom made coffee while I sat at his kitchen table, my hands wrapped around a mug I wasn't drinking from, trying to find the words to explain everything. His house smelled like old books and coffee, comforting, safe. There were photographs on the walls, Tom and David fishing together, both of them young and laughing, Tom at his retirement party from the police department, his late wife, Marie, before the cancer took her. We'd both lost our partners, both learned to live in the silence they left behind. "Start from the beginning," Tom said gently, sitting across from me, "and don't leave anything out." So I told him everything about finding the envelope in Gregory's coat, the photographs of him with another woman, Emily, whoever she was, the hotel receipt that proved he'd lied to Susan about where he'd been, my agonizing decision to stay silent, to protect Susan from the pain, and then the nightmare that followed, the threatening text message, the black sedan watching me, the systematic sabotage of my business, the police investigation. Tom listened without interrupting, his cop face firmly in place, neutral, attentive, processing. When I finished, the silence stretched between us. "Do you have the photographs?" he asked finally. I shook my head. I put them back in his coat. I took the coat back to him. I was trying to... My voice broke. I don't know what I was trying to do. "You were trying to protect your daughter. That's not a crime, Margaret." Tom leaned forward, his eyes serious. "But you should have come to me immediately." I know I was stupid. I thought if I just stayed quiet, if I didn't make waves, he would leave you alone. Tom's expression was grim. Men who threaten women don't leave them alone. They escalate. The truth of that sat heavy in the room. Tom stood up, pacing to the window, his hands in his pockets. "Here's what bothers me. The affair alone wouldn't be worth all this. The threats, the sabotage, that's an enormous amount of effort to keep a secret that, frankly, comes out eventually anyway. There's something bigger here." "What do you mean?" "I mean Gregory Reed is hiding something much worse than an affair, and you, by finding those photographs, got too close to whatever it is." A chill ran down my spine. "What do I do?" Tom turned back to me, and I saw the detective he used to be. Sharp, focused, determined. "You let me investigate. Quietly, I still have contacts, resources. Let me dig into Gregory's background, see what I can find. Tom, he's destroying my business, my reputation. I can't just..." "Yes, you can, because if you confront him now, if you go to Susan or the police or anyone else without proof of what he really is, you'll lose. He's already positioned you as the unreliable one, the woman whose business is failing, who's making mistakes, who might be unstable." I wanted to argue, but I knew he was right. "Give me 3 days," Tom said. 72 hours. Don't contact Gregory. Don't do anything that might spook him. Just go about your life as normally as possible." "Normal," I repeated bitterly, "while I watch everything I've built fall apart." Tom crossed the room and took my hands in his. Warm, solid, real. "David made me promise, before he died, that I'd look after you, that if you ever needed anything, I'd be there. I intend to keep that promise." Tears burned in my eyes. "I miss him so much sometimes I can't breathe." "I know. Me too." The next 3 days were agony. I went through the motions at Crystal Clean, serving the customers who still came, apologizing to those who complained, trying to salvage what I could of my reputation. Every time the door opened, I half expected to see Gregory walk in, or the police, or someone else sent to destroy what remained of my life. The black sedan appeared twice more, always at a distance, always watching. Tom called once each day with updates. Brief, cryptic, just enough to let me know he was working on it. On the third day, Thursday afternoon, Tom came into the laundromat. One look at his face told me everything had changed. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Somewhere private." We went to the back room, away from the customers. Tom closed the door behind us and pulled out a thin folder. "Margaret, you need to brace yourself." My heart hammered. "What did you find?" "Gregory Reed isn't his real name. It's an alias. Legal. Changed about 6 years ago, right before he met Susan." Tom opened the folder, showing me documents I didn't fully understand. His birth name was Gregory Reichman. He's got a history in 2 other states, Colorado, then Oregon, in both places. He worked for engineering firms, and in both places, those firms eventually discovered financial irregularities, embezzlement, fraud, missing funds. I stared at the papers, the words swimming in front of my eyes. He's a criminal. He's smart enough to stay ahead of prosecution. The company settled privately, didn't press charges, probably to avoid publicity, but he's been doing this for years, getting close to people, using their identities and access to move money around, and when things get too hot, he moves on. "Susan," I whispered. "Oh God, Susan." "There's more." Tom's voice was gentle but firm. "Your laundromat, your business accounts. I think he's been using them to launder money from his current scheme. The bank irregularities, the duplicate deposits. That's his handiwork, Margaret. He's setting you up to take the fall if anyone starts investigating." The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the table. He's been using me, using your business, your good name, your reputation. And when you found those photographs, you became a threat, not because of the affair, but because if you started digging, you might uncover the financial crimes. I have to tell Susan. Right now I have to... No. Tom's hand on my arm stopped me. Not yet. We need more proof. Solid evidence that will stand up legally. Otherwise he'll deny everything, make you look crazy, and disappear with your daughter's money, maybe even with your grandkids. So what do we do? Tom's expression hardened with determination. We set a trap. Tom's plan was simple, dangerous, and absolutely necessary. "You're going to act like nothing's wrong," he explained, spreading documents across his dining room table. "Go about your business. Be normal. Be the Margaret that Gregory thinks he's successfully intimidated. And then we catch him doing what he does best, being arrogant and careless." Over the next week, Tom installed a small camera in crystal clean, hidden in the smoke detector above the counter. He showed me how to check the feed on my phone, how to save recordings to a cloud server that Gregory couldn't access or delete. "If he comes in, be natural. Let him think he's won," Tom instructed. "Arrogant men make mistakes when they think they're safe." I also started keeping meticulous records. Every transaction, every customer interaction, every deposit and withdrawal. Tom helped me create a shadow set of books that showed the real numbers versus what was appearing in the bank system. The discrepancies were damning. Money flowing through my accounts that I'd never touched. Deposits I'd never made. Withdrawals for expenses I'd never approved. Gregory's fingerprints were all over it. We just needed to prove it. Tom also had a forensic accountant friend, retired like him, but still sharp. Review everything. Within 2 days, she'd traced patterns that matched Gregory's previous schemes in Colorado and Oregon. "He's using the same playbook," Tom said grimly, "which means he'll follow the same pattern. He'll need to access your accounts directly soon, probably to move the money out before anyone notices." "How does he have access to my accounts?" Tom's expression darkened. "Through Susan. He probably convinced her to be a co-signer years ago for emergencies, then used her credentials to set up backdoor access. She probably doesn't even know." The thought of my daughter being used like that, manipulated, violated, made complicit in her own betrayal, made me physically ill. Days passed. I played my part, acting defeated and scared, which wasn't hard because I was both those things. I smiled weakly at Gregory when he came to pick up dry cleaning. I didn't mention the bank problems or the police investigation. I was just tired, Margaret, worn down, no longer a threat. And Gregory believed it. I could see it in the way he relaxed around me, the way his smile became genuine again. He even brought me flowers one afternoon. "Heard you've been having a rough time, Mom Margaret," he said, placing the bouquet on the counter. "Susan's worried about you, we both are." "That's very kind," I managed, wanting to throw the flowers in his face. "You know, if you need help with the business side of things, accounting, that kind of thing, I'd be happy to take a look. Sometimes a fresh set of eyes can spot problems you might miss." There it was, the offer to help that would give him legitimate access, let him clean up his tracks, maybe even set me up more completely. "I'll think about it," I said softly. "Thank you." He squeezed my shoulder, a gesture that once would have felt paternal and now felt like a threat. Family takes care of family. After he left, I watched the camera footage on my phone, the way he'd glanced at the computer, at the filing cabinets, the way his eyes had calculated and assessed. He was planning something. Tom agreed. "He's getting ready to make his move, which means we need to make ours first." The trap was elegantly simple. Tom would have his forensic accountant friend send an official-looking letter to Gregory's office, something about a routine audit required by the engineering firm's insurance company. Nothing threatening, just bureaucratic tedium. But buried in that audit request, Tom explained, will be a requirement for Gregory to provide documentation about any secondary business interests or financial connections. That includes his involvement with Susan's accounts, and, by extension, your business. "He'll panic," I said. "Exactly. And when people panic, they act rashly. He'll need to cover his tracks, which means he'll need to access your business accounts directly, probably after hours, to move or delete evidence. And you'll be watching." Tom nodded. "I'll be watching and recording, and the moment he makes his move, we'll have him." The letter was sent on a Friday. By Monday afternoon, Gregory called me. "Hey, Mom Margaret, I was thinking about that offer to help with your books. How about I swing by tonight after you close? We can get everything sorted out." My heart hammered, but I kept my voice steady. "That would be wonderful, Gregory, thank you." "What time do you close?" 6:30. "Perfect. I'll be there at 7. And Margaret, don't worry about any of this anymore. I'm going to make everything right," I called Tom immediately after hanging up. "He took the bait," I said, my hands shaking. "Tonight at 7. Good." Tom's voice was calm, professional. "I'll be there at 6, hidden in the back. When he shows up, act natural. Let him do what he's planning to do. I'll be recording everything, and I'll have the police on standby." "Tom, what if he realizes it's a trap? What if he does something violent?" "Margaret, I won't let anything happen to you, I promise." That evening, I went through my closing routine with mechanical precision, counted the register, locked the machines, straightened the waiting area. At 6 o'clock, Tom slipped in through the back door. "Remember," he said quietly, "you're scared and compliant. You trust him. He's here to help. Let him think that right up until the moment he incriminates himself." Tom disappeared into the storage room, and I was alone. At 7:03, Gregory's car pulled into the parking lot. I took a breath, steadied myself, and unlocked the front door. "Come in," I said, smiling like the trusting mother-in-law I was supposed to be. Gregory stepped inside, and I saw his expression, confident, almost eager. "Let's get you sorted out," he said. But his eyes were already moving toward the computer, and I knew, tonight, the truth would finally come to light. Gregory moved through crystal clean, like he owned it. "Why don't you sit down, Mom Margaret?" he said, gesturing to the chair by the window. "This might take a while. I need to access your accounting software. Check your bank connections. See what's really going on." "Of course," I said, my voice small, defeated, everything Tom told me to be. "Thank you for doing this." He was already at my computer, his fingers flying over the keyboard with the confidence of someone who'd done this before. "Many times before. The password is still the same?" he asked. "The one Susan set up for you?" "Yes, I'm not very good with technology." "That's okay, that's what family's for." I watched him work, my heart pounding so hard I was sure he could hear it. In the storage room, Tom was recording every keystroke, every screen, every incriminating action. Gregory pulled up my business bank account. His eyes narrowed as he scanned the transactions, and I saw something flicker across his face. Concern, calculation. He murmured. "There's definitely some weird stuff here. Transactions that don't match your deposit records. Can you fix it?" "I can certainly try." He opened another window, typing commands I didn't understand. I watched the reflection of the screen in his glasses. Numbers, accounts, transfer protocols. He was moving money, actually doing it right in front of me, believing I was too ignorant to understand what I was witnessing. "This is going to take some time," Gregory said, not looking at me. "Why don't you make us some coffee?" It was a dismissal. He wanted me out of the room, away from what he was doing. "Sure," I said, standing up. "I'll just be in the back." "Perfect." I walked toward the small break room, my legs unsteady, but instead of making coffee, I slipped into the storage room where Tom was crouched by the door, his laptop open, recording everything. "He's moving the money," Tom whispered, "transferring it to offshore accounts, and he's deleting his digital footprint as he goes, erasing evidence of his access, his previous transfers. Margaret, he's actively committing fraud right now. Is it enough? More than enough. But I want to see how far he'll go." We waited. 5 minutes, 10, from the front room. I could hear the clicking of keys, the occasional muttered curse, then Gregory's voice. Margaret, where's that coffee?" I stepped back into the break room, called out, "Just a minute." Actually, Gregory's voice was closer now. "Don't bother, I'm almost done here." When I came back to the main room, Gregory was standing by the computer, his jacket on, his expression satisfied. "All fixed," he said, smiling. "The irregularities have been corrected. Your accounts should be back to normal by tomorrow." "Really? Oh, Gregory, I don't know how to thank you." "No need." He picked up his briefcase. "That's what family does. We take care of each other." But something had changed in his eyes, a coldness that hadn't been there before. "You know what's interesting, Margaret?" He moved closer, his voice dropping. "The system shows that someone accessed these accounts from an external location last week. Someone was digging into your files who shouldn't have been." My blood turned to ice. "I don't understand." "Don't you?" He tilted his head, studying me. "See, I thought maybe you'd hired someone, an accountant, maybe, or a private investigator." The air in the room felt thick, dangerous. "Gregory, You've been acting strange, Margaret, for weeks now. Ever since that laundry order, the one with my coat." He took another step forward. "Did you find something in my coat, Margaret?" My mouth went dry. I couldn't speak. "You did, didn't you?" His smile was gone completely now, replaced with something hard and calculating. "And you've been playing along, pretending to be the scared little old lady, while someone, who? Margaret, who did you tell?" "Nobody. I don't know what you're—" "Don't lie to me." The sudden shout made me flinch. This was Gregory without his mask. Raw, angry, dangerous. "I've been watching you, following you. I know you went to see Tom Harris, David's old cop buddy. Did you tell him about the pictures, about Emily?" "There's nothing to tell," I whispered, backing away. "Everything I've built here, my life with Susan, my position, my access. You could destroy all of it because you couldn't mind your own damn business." He advanced on me, his face twisted with rage. "I warned you. That text message was a warning. The sabotage was a warning, but you didn't listen. Gregory, please. You know what the sad part is?" His voice was almost conversational now, which was somehow more terrifying. "I actually liked you. You reminded me of my own mother, before she died. But you couldn't just stay quiet, could you? You had to be the hero." He reached for me, and I stumbled backward, knocking into a chair. "Nobody knows the truth about me, Margaret, not Susan, not the engineering firm, not this pathetic little town. And nobody's going to know because tonight there's going to be a tragic accident, a gas leak, maybe a fire. Poor Margaret Collins working late in her laundromat, overcome by fumes before she could escape. Terror gave way to something else, a clarity born of desperation. "You won't get away with this," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Won't I?" he laughed. "Who's going to stop me? You. The police already think you're unstable. Your business is failing. You're isolated, alone." The storage room door burst open. "No, Gregory, she's not alone." Tom stepped out, his phone raised, recording behind him. Through the back entrance came 2 police officers. Gregory froze, his face cycling through shock, rage, and finally calculation. He bolted toward the front door. He didn't make it 3 steps before the officers had him on the ground, hands cuffed behind his back, reading him his rights over his shouted protests. I sank into a chair, my whole body shaking, Tom's hand on my shoulder. the only thing keeping me grounded. "It's over," Tom said quietly. "Margaret, it's over." But I knew, looking at Gregory's face as they pulled him to his feet, seeing the hatred in his eyes as he looked at me. It wasn't over, not yet. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and old paperwork. I sat in a hard plastic chair, wrapped in a blanket someone had given me even though I wasn't cold, watching detectives move back and forth through the bullpen with urgent purpose. Gregory was somewhere in this building, in an interrogation room, probably, facing questions he couldn't charm his way through. Tom sat beside me, solid and present, occasionally bringing me water. I didn't drink. Detective Sarah Chen, no relation to Mrs. Chen from the laundromat, came out of the back offices, carrying a thick folder. She'd been kind to me, professional but sympathetic, and I could tell she was good at her job. "Mrs. Collins," she said, sitting across from us, "we've been going through Gregory Reichman's computer. The evidence is extensive." "Reichman," I repeated. Even his name had been a lie. His real name. He legally changed it to Reed 6 years ago, shortly before meeting your daughter. She opened the folder, showing me documents. "We've been in contact with authorities in Colorado and Oregon. He's wanted for questioning in multiple fraud cases. He's been doing this for over a decade, embedding himself in companies and families, using their identities and access to embezzle funds." "How much?" Tom asked. "How much did he steal?" "From the engineering firm where he currently works, preliminary estimates suggest over $3 million. From your daughter's accounts, Miss Collins, another $200,000. And from your business accounts." "My laundromat," I said numbly. "He used my laundromat to launder money." "Yes, ironic, isn't it?" Detective Chen's expression was sympathetic. "The money moved through your accounts to make it look legitimate, then transferred to offshore holdings. You were never meant to know. He counted on you being—" She paused delicately, "financially unsophisticated. And Susan," my voice cracked, "does she know?" "Not yet. We wanted to talk to you first, get your statement, but she'll need to be informed tonight. She's a victim here too. Mrs. Collins, she's going to need support." My heart broke for my daughter, for what she was about to learn, for how completely her world was about to shatter. "There's more," Detective Chen continued. "We found correspondence about the woman in the photographs. Emily Winters. She filed a restraining order against Reichman 2 months ago in San Luis Obispo. He'd been stalking her, threatening her. She wasn't his mistress. She was another victim." "Oh, God," I whispered. "She's been cooperating with our investigation. Her testimony, combined with the evidence Tom Harris gathered and what we found tonight, gives us more than enough for multiple charges: fraud, embezzlement, identity theft, money laundering, harassment, and attempted assault." "He was going to kill me," I said. The words felt surreal. "He said there would be an accident, a fire." Tom's hand tightened on my shoulder. Detective Chen nodded grimly. "We have all of that on recording. That's attempted murder. He's not getting out of this. Mrs. Collins, not this time." The next hours blurred together, giving my statement, answering questions, signing forms. Somewhere around midnight, Tom drove me home, but I couldn't bear to be alone. He made up the guest room without asking, understanding that I needed someone nearby. I didn't sleep. How could I? At 7 in the morning, my phone rang. "Susan, Mom." Her voice was small, broken. "The police just left. They told me everything. About Gregory, about the money, about—" She broke down completely, sobs racking through the phone connection. "I'm coming over," I said immediately. "I'm coming right now." Susan's house, the beautiful home she'd worked so hard for, the place where she'd built her life, felt different now, tainted. The furniture, the photographs on the walls, the children's toys scattered in the living room, all of it was the same. But everything had changed. My daughter sat on the couch, still in her pajamas, her face swollen from crying. The kids were at school, thank God. We'd have to tell them something eventually, but not today. I sat beside her and she collapsed into my arms like she was 8 years old again, needing her mother to make the hurt go away. "I trusted him," she sobbed. "I loved him. We have children together. How could I not see?" "Because he's a liar," I said fiercely, holding her tight. "A professional liar. He fooled everyone, sweetheart. the engineering firm, the banks, our entire town. And he fooled me too, for 5 years. You found out. You tried to protect me. I should have told you immediately. When I found those photographs, the police said they were fake, that he was stalking that woman. I pulled back to look at my daughter's face. Emily Winters. She's another victim. He was probably using her identity too, setting her up for something. Susan's expression crumbled again. Everything was a lie. Our entire marriage, every moment, every memory, all of it was just part of his con. No, I said firmly. Your love was real. Your commitment was real. The life you tried to build, the mother you became, that was all real. He was the fake one, not you. We sat together as morning turned to afternoon, as shock gave way to grief, as grief gave way to anger. At some point, Tom arrived with food. We didn't eat, and coffee we did drink. He sat with us, saying little, just being present. What happens now? Susan finally asked. Now, I smoothed her hair back from her face. Now we survive. We heal. We protect your children. We rebuild. I don't know if I can. You can, because you're my daughter and we're survivors, both of us. 2 weeks later. Gregory, I still couldn't think of him as Reichman, was formally charged with 14 counts of fraud, embezzlement, and attempted murder. The evidence was overwhelming. His lawyers were already negotiating a plea deal. The engineering firm was in chaos. 3 executives had been suspended pending investigation into how they'd missed the fraud for so long. My laundromat was cleared of any wrongdoing. The bank unfroze my accounts. Customers slowly began returning, their faith in me restored, and one afternoon, a woman walked into Crystal Clean, who I recognized from the photographs. Emily Winters was smaller than I'd imagined, with nervous eyes and a tentative smile. Miss Collins, she asked, I'm Emily. I wanted to meet you, to say thank you. If you hadn't found those pictures, if you hadn't investigated, I might still be living in fear. We talked for over an hour. She told me about how Gregory had pursued her relentlessly, how he'd lied about being divorced, how when she'd rejected him, he'd turned threatening. She'd been terrified, alone, not knowing who to trust. The police told me about your daughter, Emily said softly. I'm so sorry she's going through this. Would you like to meet her? The words surprised me even as I said them. She might benefit from talking to someone who understands. Emily's eyes widened. Would she want to? I think she might. 3 days later, Emily and Susan met for coffee. I watched through the cafe window as 2 women, both betrayed, both victimized, found unexpected comfort in their shared experience. And I realized, sometimes the worst betrayals lead to the most unexpected connections. Sometimes from destruction comes something new. 6 months later, I stood in the doorway of Crystal Clean and barely recognized it. The renovation had transformed the space. New washing machines hummed efficiently along the walls. Fresh paint brightened everything. There were comfortable chairs in the waiting area now, a small coffee station, even a children's corner with books and toys. The old fluorescent lights had been replaced with warm LED fixtures that made the whole place feel welcoming rather than institutional. But the best addition was the desk in the corner, where Susan sat with her laptop, managing the books with a precision and attention to detail that would have made her father proud. Mom, the Henderson account just cleared, she called out, and we got another 5-star review online. That makes 12 this month, I said. Smiling, my daughter had moved back in with me 3 months ago. Temporarily, she insisted. Though we both knew she wasn't ready to live alone yet. The divorce was progressing quickly. Gregory's arrest had made the legal separation straightforward, and his assets, what few remained after restitution, would go towards supporting Emily and Jake. The kids were resilient in the way children are, adapting to their new reality with a flexibility adults struggle to find. They knew their father had made bad choices and was away for a while. The fuller truth would come later, when they were old enough to understand. Susan had thrown herself into helping with the laundromat, discovering a talent for business management she'd never known she had. She'd reorganized our systems, improved our online presence, even negotiated better rates with suppliers. You're making me obsolete, I joked once. Impossible, she'd replied. You're the heart of this place. I'm just the spreadsheets. The bell above the door chimed, and I looked up to see Emily Winters walking in with a basket of laundry. "Good morning, Margaret," she said warmly. "Morning, Emily. The usual. Please, and could you be extra careful with the blue dress? I have a job interview next week. Of course, what's the position? Administrative assistant at the law firm on 3rd Street. Nothing fancy, but it's a start." After months of therapy and healing, Emily was rebuilding her life. She'd become a regular customer, but more than that, she'd become a friend to both of us. I watched as Susan came over to chat with Emily, the two of them laughing about something, and marveled at the strange turns life takes. 6 months ago, I'd thought those photographs meant the destruction of my family. Instead, they'd led to something unexpected: strength, truth, and connections I'd never anticipated. The door chimed again. Tom Harris, carrying 2 cups of coffee and wearing a smile that still made my heart skip a little. "Morning, ladies," he said, handing me one of the cups. "Margaret, are we still on for dinner tonight?" 7 o'clock, I confirmed. "Your place or mine?" "Mine. I'm making that pasta you like." Susan caught my eye and grinned knowingly. Tom and I had been seeing each other, cautiously, carefully, 2 people who'd both known love and loss, learning to open their hearts again. It was sweet and uncomplicated, built on years of friendship and mutual respect. David would have approved. I was certain of that. The morning passed in comfortable routine. Customers came and went. The machines ran their cycles. Susan handled the accounts while I managed the floor. Tom stayed for an hour, helping me move a heavy dryer before heading home to work on his latest project, a memoir about his years on the police force. At lunchtime, I took my break in the back room. Sitting in the chair by the window with a sandwich I barely tasted, on the shelf beside me, tucked in a cardboard box, was the gray wool coat. I'd kept it, not as a trophy or a reminder of pain, but as evidence of how much can hide beneath a beautiful surface. How something that looks elegant and perfect can conceal poison. The coat had started everything. That moment when I'd reached into the pocket and found the envelope, that single decision to look instead of ignore, had set off a chain of events that destroyed one life and saved so many others. If I hadn't looked, Gregory would have continued his schemes. More money would have been stolen, more people would have been hurt. And eventually, when his house of cards finally collapsed, Susan would have been left not just betrayed, but possibly criminally implicated. That coat, those photographs, that moment of discovery, it had been the beginning of the end and the beginning of something new. Detective Chen had told me that Gregory Reichman had been sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. He'd taken a plea deal to avoid trial, allocating the stolen money, showing authorities where the offshore accounts were hidden. Most of the funds had been recovered. The engineering firm had survived. The victims, including Susan and Emily, were being compensated. Justice, as much as justice ever really exists, had been served. I heard laughter from the front room. Susan and a customer sharing a joke about something. The sound filled me with warmth. My daughter was healing slowly, painfully, but genuinely. She was discovering who she was without Gregory, what she wanted from life, what strength she carried in her own heart. And the kids, they were thriving. Emily had joined the soccer team. Jake had discovered a love for painting. Children were remarkable that way, capable of finding joy, even in the midst of chaos. At 5 o'clock, as the sun began to set outside the windows, casting everything in gold, I stood at the counter and looked around crystal clean. This place had saved me once, after David died, and it had saved me again. In a different way, when everything threatened to fall apart. A laundromat, such a simple, humble business, but it had become so much more. A place of honest work, of community trust, of secrets revealed and truths acknowledged. I thought about all the clothes that passed through here, stained, dirty, worn, each one carrying the evidence of life lived. Grass stains from children playing, wine spills from celebrations, grease marks from hard work. Every piece came to me damaged in some way, and I washed them clean, not by hiding the stains or pretending they weren't there, but by bringing them into the light, treating them with care, and working until the damage was gone. That's what truth does, I realized. It washes us clean, not by hiding what hurt us, but by exposing it, acknowledging it, and working through it until we can move forward. Not all secrets should be kept. Some need to be brought into the light. Some need to be washed. just like the clothes in my laundromat, until they're clean again. Tom picked me up at 7 as promised. We drove to his house under a sky painted purple and orange with sunset. Over pasta and wine, we talked about small things. His memoir, Susan's progress, the grandkids' latest adventures. Do you ever regret it? Tom asked quietly. Finding those photographs, starting all of this, I considered the question. Thought about everything that had followed. The fear, the danger, the pain of watching Susan's world collapse. No, I said finally. If I hadn't looked, the damage would have been so much worse, and we wouldn't have found out who Gregory really was until it was too late. You're braver than you think, Margaret Collins. I'm not brave. I'm just a mother who protects her children. Same thing, Tom said, taking my hand across the table. Later that night, lying in my own bed, I thought about David, about how he would have handled all of this, probably with more decisiveness and less fear than I'd managed. But he wasn't here. I was, and I'd done my best with the choices I'd faced. Life doesn't give us the challenges we're ready for. It gives us the challenges we need to grow into who we're meant to become. I'd been Margaret Collins, widow, laundromat owner, trying to survive after loss. Now I was Margaret Collins, mother, protector, truth teller, stronger than I'd known, braver than I'd believed, and I was ready for whatever came next.